Dr. Ray Collins had recently turned 45 and was the head of a surgical department at a hospital. He was madly in love with his job, and the curse of professional burnout did not affect him. Despite his career successes, his personal life did not work out. He used to be a happy married man. He had a beautiful wife who once fell madly in love with the promising surgeon and a lovely daughter. Now the man was divorced and rarely saw his daughter. Ray's ex-wife, who loved gifts and attention, successfully remarried. The millionaire husband provided her and his stepdaughter with a luxurious life. He gave money for shopping, took them abroad, regularly arranged dinner parties. Ray remained a bachelor after the divorce. Now he was accompanied by his favorite pet, a Labrador named Hamlet. In his free time, Ray walked with a dog in the park. Hamlet loved such walks. He frolics, scurried around like a puppy. The four-legged friend accompanied Ray to work with sadness and melancholy brown eyes. But his joy was limitless when he returned home. The dog greeted Ray with joyful barking and wagging tail. One day, a woman of about 35 was hospitalized with severe injuries from a car accident. After surgery, which lasted several hours, Rosemary did not regain consciousness for a long time. When the woman woke up, it turned out that she had a speech impediment. She could not say a word, only incoherent sounds. The doctors attributed it to the consequences of the head injury. Rosemary could not move around on her own. She just lay there and sometimes cried from the pain and powerlessness. Ray felt sorry for the young woman. He saw sadness in her eyes. Rosemary was often visited by an imposing man named Marcus, who introduced himself as her husband. He was stylishly dressed and trimmed. In addition, he looked about 8 years younger than Rosemary. The handsome man aroused the interest of all the nurses. "Such a handsome husband. She is so lucky," they said enviously. Marcus took care of Rosemary and showed his love in every possible way. "I can't be at home knowing that you are suffering here alone," he said, kissing his wife and putting the lush bouquet of roses he had bought in a vase. The man settled on the edge of the bed and sympathetically stroked his wife's hair. Rosemary could not answer him anything, just nodded or shook her head. From her reaction, it was impossible to say that she was pleased with the visits of a young, helpful spouse. Ray, as Rosemary's doctor, more than once noticed that the woman looked at her young husband with a hunted look, and as if she wanted to get out of bed or away from his arms. Not knowing why, the doctor began to observe a strange married couple. He asked the staff if they noticed anything suspicious, but everyone just shrugged their shoulders. At about the same time, a pretty woman came into the hospital director's office. Jenna was a nurse and wanted to work in the department. The woman was modest, did not ingratiate herself, kept a calm and confident manner, and thus differed from many female employees. The director looked over her resume, noted her good education and excellent references from her previous job, and hired the woman as a nurse on Dr. Collins's department. Ray was glad. The department was short of competent nurses. Jenna really knew her job well. She managed all the procedures on time, made the necessary entries in the registers, was kind to the patients. But with the staff, she kept aloof. Ray got the impression that Jenna only cared about her work and that she was not interested in establishing friendly relations. However, there was another oddity. The man noticed that the new nurse quickly found an approach to the silent patient. She willingly took care of Rosemary, constantly rotating beside her, either to adjust the pillow or to give her water. All this, of course, was right, but not so often, and not to the detriment of other patients. Noticing the tears in Rosemary's eyes after another visit from Jenna, the man decided to talk to the patient and find out the cause of her anxiety. Rosemary, I would like to ask you some questions. If the answer is yes, blink twice. If no, blink once. Okay? Contrary to the surgeon's expectations, the woman shook her head in the negative and lowered her eyes. I'm not the enemy. Believe me, I want to help, because I see something is weighing on you, said Ray kindly. But Rosemary stubbornly refused to answer. All this seemed strange to the doctor. He did not insist and left the ward. But anxious thoughts did not leave him, and he decided to act differently. One day, during his lunch break, the man went out of the hospital to buy a surveillance camera. In the evening, when Jenna's shift was over and Rosemary finally fell asleep peacefully, Ray snuck into the room and secured the camera in a secluded place. When he arrived at work in the morning, the first thing he did was check the video from the room. Ray hoped to find answers to his questions, but what appeared before his eyes struck the man. A nurse pacing around the room and from time to time threateningly approached the immobile patient. And what he heard shocked the doctor altogether. Well, why are you still lying there? You can lie here for years, but remember that we have your son, and my patience is not strong, hissed Jenna threateningly. Better strain your memory and remember your password to the bank account, otherwise your son Mark will be bad. He's already crying every day, calling for his mummy. Why don't you give a damn about him? And remember, not a living soul should find out about our conversation. If you make a sound to anyone, it'll be very bad for your boy. And I also know how to send you to the other world with impunity. Understand? Threatened the treacherous nurse in a sweet voice, touched Rosemary's neck as if cutting her throat gesture, and left the room. Ray was taken aback by what he saw and heard. How is it possible that in the hospital, under his nose, mean blackmailer threatened to kill an unstable patient and blackmailed the life of his son? He would never let that happen and would do everything to have that scoundrel arrested and punished to the fullest extent of the law. Ray had a good friend, Alex, who was in the police force. When he looked at the tape that Ray had made, he respectfully shook his hand and said, "Yes, your hospital is lucky to have such a doctor. You did this patient a great favor, and this data on Jenna, I'll give my guys right now. Let them check in the database." 10 minutes later, a call came from Alex's subordinates. It turned out that the kind nurse was a known fraudster, many times caught in the sight of the police, but always successfully evaded justice. But not this time. Jenna was detained. At the interrogation, seeing the tape from the room, the scammer was scared and immediately gave up her accomplice. It turned out that he was Rosemary's husband. Jenna said that Rosemary was a rich widow. Her first husband had died several years ago in a car accident and had left his wife and 7-year-old son Mark a successful business. 2 years later, the widow met Marcus. He behaved tactfully, long and beautifully courting, then managed to win the woman's trust. The thing is that the cheater had prepared in advance and made inquiries about the rich widow. After a while, Rosemary gave in and reciprocated to the man who seemed to her ideal. The couple married. Marcus, having gained the full confidence of his wife, learned from her passwords to the account's safe deposit box. Nothing else prevented the caring hubby to get out of the way of a rich spouse. He staged an accident, but everything went not according to the plan of the wily, charming man. Not only that Rosemary, suspecting wrong, changed all the passwords, and even did not die in an accident. Then Marcus and Jenna came up with a new cunning plan. Jenna got a job at the hospital and every day blackmailed the poor woman with the life of her boy in exchange for passwords to the bank safes. Rosemary realized that as soon as she gave out the cherished information, the criminals would reprisal her and Mark, and decided to pretend to be mute. Worried for her son's life, the woman was afraid to go to the police for help. Marcus was arrested and charged with attempted murder of his wife and kidnapping of a child for the purpose of blackmail. When the man was shown the tape of the accomplice's confession, he immediately gave up and began accusing Jenna of everything. Realizing that it would be impossible to conduct an investigation, blaming each other, the criminals confessed to everything and told where they had been hiding Mark all this time. After the frightened boy was fed and examined, Ray took him to the hospital to his mother. "Mummy!" cried Mark, rushing to Rosemary with a hug. "Sonny, you're all right." The woman kissed her son and cried with happiness. "They didn't do anything to you, my boy." "No, but I was scared without you. I cried," Mark said bashfully, hugging Rosemary by the neck. Ray gave mother and son time to be alone together. When the man returned to the ward, he saw the woman's eyes full of gratitude. "Dr. Collins, thank you so much for installing a camera in my room and nailing this terrible woman. I won't forget it." "You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. Do you have any relatives in the city? If you want, I can take Mark to my place for a while, even though I live alone, but I enjoy the companionship of children. Besides, I have a dog, and they'll have fun together, and I bring the boy to you every day." "Thank you, Dr. Collins. I'll be calm if my son lives with you," replied Rosemary, with gratitude and tears in her voice. Ray took Mark to his house. They spent all their free time together. They read books, took walks, knowing that all the problems were behind them. Rosemary was rapidly on the mend. Ray and Mark visited her daily. They could spend a long time talking on any topic. The man realized that he was falling in love with his patient little by little. The sympathy was mutual. Rosemary felt the same. After discharge, Ray invited Rosemary and Mark, who had returned to his mother, to dinner. When the boy, having played, fell asleep on the floor with Hamlet, the man dared to tell his former patient about his feelings. He was very surprised and glad to hear in response that Rosemary had also liked him for a long time. Since that evening, Ray and Rosemary began dating. For a while, the man was still holding on to his bachelor life, but love was stronger. Later, Ray, taking Hamlet, moved into his lover's spacious home. Mark was very happy that now he had not only a four-legged friend, but also a man who became his father.